Let's look at one more verse in Exodus chapter 20 today, and that's verse 21. So if you haven't listened to us as we've talked about verses 18, 19, and 20, I'd really recommend you slide back to those previous days. Just, click a couple of videos back and look at that. But when it talks about here is Moses going up on the mountain. Remember, the people were terrified, but Moses was different. It says, as the people stood in the distance, Moses approached the dark cloud where God was. So the nation of Israel, they were overcome. They dreaded the presence of God. They didn't want to see it. It was too much. It was too much for them. But Moses was different. Moses seemed to long for it, right? And Moses, when we get over to Exodus 33, we'll talk about this again. He desired this direct contact with God, and he wanted to be in His presence in this fashion. So Moses had a relationship with God and a way of interacting with God that was very different from the common man in Israel. Through the circumstances of his life, the direct revelation of God in the burning bush, as God worked through him, parting the Red Sea, the plagues, all these different ways that he and God had been very close, and God had worked through him in a very unique way. Moses here is aware of God's holy power and His grace. But you see, it wasn't that Moses was a flawless saint. It's really, really important for us to remember and understand. Moses was not flawless. Moses was a sinner. Moses was a murderer. But yet, he, because of the restoration of God's grace and God's forgiveness, he could approach God like this. He knew what it meant to connect with God on the grounds of grace, not what he deserved. Because Moses didn't deserve to be in God's presence, but God called him into His presence by His grace. So what some people fear and reject, Moses gravitated towards, and we should be the same way. We should gravitate towards the presence of God. Even when we need forgiveness, even when we're in rebellion, even when we're in sin, we still should gravitate towards God. And we'll talk a little bit more about Exodus 20 tomorrow. See you later.